is a farce as far as I'm concerned. It's a mechanism to delete my people.
Yes.
But kind of interesting now that the Métis have been considered Indian.
Yeah.
It's one step closer to being what we are. Yes.
Human,
yes.
able to be with who you want to
Yes.
be with, and be still be part of the
So they've eliminated 6162 bloodlines.
Yeah.
And to me, blood quantums mean whether a cow or a horse or a puppy is full blood or to me, when I look at that, they throw us in the same pot as them. So we're not really considered human beings by anybody in the bureaucratic world. So that's
Well, the Mohawks are with limited territory, and as their population is growing, a lot of non-natives marry into the community, and a lot of them are abusing the tax exemption thing, like buying a lot of goods. And so, anyways, they've cut down on all those people, and they've asked them to leave. Anyone who's abusing the system, or anyone who's not as full as another full blood, let's call it that, as another family person. So only the full bloods and the half bloods are left, and then the rest have to leave. They've been actually kicked out because there's not enough space.
Yeah.
They say. So I mean, they're actually supporting that blood quantum theory, which is kind of the opposite of what you're trying to do.
I think the opportunity to move across the road on that side without anybody objecting would change all of that. Mm-hmm. We're forced into a corner of this little corner that I live in, mm-hmm. and I'm expected to bring up 400 people on two square miles. Like, it's impossible. So I know in that situation there will be a need for separating.
Yeah, and another thing, I was told that if you do buy land, and you can in order to get any rights that you were here first, and you don't really have to pay tax to the colonizing settler community. You can have your rights because you were here first. You don't need to pay taxes to. They can't demand taxes of the person who was here first. Well, when you buy any land and you convert it to reserve, then it suddenly becomes crown land. Like, it's not yours even after you buy it. If you convert it to have any rights on it, so it's your hands are tied. And if you do buy it as an individual, do you have to? If you pay taxes, you still own it and you can sell it. And
I think that's the answer. We own private land, by the way.
Okay.
And we pay taxes on it. When I talk about equality and competing in the real world, mm-hmm. I think that's something we have to look at. Eventually, the federal government will, in fact, outgrow its usefulness. Mm-hmm. If we're given the opportunity to expand in economic development without any hindrances from any kind of foreign paper, we will, in fact, rise above everything and be competitive.
I think that's what they're afraid of.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Because when my nephew went out and did this tobacco thing, we are criminals. We are absolutely good for nothing. We are living up to the name of Indian.
Yeah.
Funny, but I'm not an Indian. I'm a Dakota. And I asked the courts, who made me an Indian? And they wouldn't answer it. If I went to England and called the people of their Dakota, it wouldn't stick. They'll correct me right away. Mm-hmm. So how can somebody from another country come over here and call me an Indian? He's got no right to do that. They should have corrected him rather than taking advantage of it and making us subhuman. The need to recognize our different societies as tribes, to recognize them as human beings would be the greatest thing. And papers like the Indian Act, I think, makes it legal for us to be considered non-human. But the opportunity for economic development, that's what I'm working on quietly. I don't need to make any noise. If I succeed in getting one operation going to fend for my people, I'll do that. I will get there if God allows me to live that long. But in the venture to create our own source of revenue, we did that very successfully. But we were charged. I'm now fined a huge amount of dollars that I probably wouldn't pay for. The crazy part of all of this, and the government knows it, I have private property in my name. That's going to be confiscated if I don't pay my fine after I'm dead. And that's not even the right to do that. I had never given this country, I never gave them a right to establish Manitoba. There's still got to be some recognition, consultation with me and my people for them to be here legally. And when I'm charged for renovating buildings, that can't be handled by the federal government and their fiduciary responsibility. If I'm charged for that, then there's something terribly wrong. I put food on the table for my people who needed it. I bridge financed post-secondary education. When I left the tribal council, they withheld enough money from my people to send 4 more students to university. And nobody questioned it, nobody said anything. I tried, but it's a legal right for them to do that, supposedly. And I bridge financed part of it for a brief time. We financed fire prevention. We helped destitute families. We paid for some rooms for people who were going to Winnipeg for medical appointments. And I got charged for that.
And this was all because you traded tobacco with Mohawk?
Yes, my right to trade and commerce with another nation. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And now, because of the charges and because they've invaded again my right to this land, then they're now again accusing me of a taxpayer dollar abuser, when in fact I was taking care of it without their taxes. And besides that, I don't think it's taxes that are paying for me. Somebody's going to have to give an accounting of the resources of this country and the destruction of it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So somebody owes me something, not me, my people. Mm-hmm. I'm going to die here very quickly. I'm trying to hang on. I've had diabetes for going on 12 years. I've had 2 heart attacks. So none of the ventures that I'm involved in is for me. I don't care to be rich. And then there's a book that I mentioned, the Bible. It said if I'm rich, I can't go to heaven. But I want to go to heaven because there's a little bit of hell here where I'm living. I think I've had enough of it. So this is not for me. It's for a better life for my people. I was talking to the young lady before that when black mold was found on the Dakota Plains, nobody gave a damn. In a big city, they found black mold that same year. They evacuated the whole building because they were non-Aboriginal and they were important. My people are living in the same conditions.
I want to ask you the difference of federal and provincial, because theoretically you're supposed to be handled by the federal government. When did the provincials step in and say they were responsible for certain aspects of your living and your financial choices?
Excuse me. I think they were involved right from the get-go. The federal government, in their attempt to govern the country, established the provinces, and the provinces obviously make up Canada. Mm-hmm. And we're within Canada and inside the provinces. And they get a share of our resourcing, I guess. And whether they want to or not, they are living worthy of in possession of Dakota, Ojibwe, Mohawk, Iroquois land. This is ours. We never gave it to them. We made an agreement to live with them, but not to take it all and claim it.
So any treaties were to share,
Yes.
to trade as equal partners.
Yes, it's kind of funny that go back to a time when the English language and the educating of our people were very minimal. That we could write a treaty that was all encompassing and then to include protective clauses for our people. I think a lot of it was taken and interpreted at a person's convenience to eliminate any kind of equality that my grandfathers thought they would have when it come to sharing the land. And I think the treaties were written in such a way that it was seemed like they gave the land away, but I don't think they did that. But
It's clear from the beginning there was an agenda to get rid of you.
Yes, my
with the blankets, the
trinkets, beads. Yes.
With the diseases spread
Yes.
on purpose. I mean, there's letters from the Prime Minister and other people, Amherst, and it's germ warfare, and it was purposely done.
Yes,
It's documented.
that's right.
The pass system, not allowed to leave your land, that was never a law. And yet they jailed you for like 11 prime ministers after Sir John A. Macdonald, and
Yeah.
so just to wipe you out.
They tried to. I think demonstrated by my grandpa. He died in 1955, 56 somewhere. He was attached to very closely to his relatives, and to him there was no international border, and there was no immigration. We weren't immigrants. He was a medicine man, and he was adamant that we had certain rights, and he knew the Bible, believe it or not, and his spiritual communion with Wakantaka. He talked about the inundate, the turmoil, the infighting, the separation from families, the mother against daughter, sons against dads, that kind of stuff. He talked about it, and many years later, I would become part of a movement that preached Christianity. And I got to read the Bible, and I found what he was saying in the book of Revelations in the end time. So he had a means of communicating with God, and for him to write a treaty, he would certainly be wise enough not to give the land away, but he couldn't read the finished product. So who knows what he would be
Subjected to.
yes, or presumed to be given away. And he had a means of signing his name other than X.
Yeah, that just blew me away when I saw the treaty signed with X's.
Yes, it's easily done.
Unbelievable. And the weight that those treaties are held on to, and just by an X, like unbelievable.
Yes, they're still using those X's to exercise the treaties.
And there's that one line that there was never any doubt from the onset that title was vested in the crown, title to all land, even though Canada was just up to the southern tip of Manitoba.
Yeah.
Manitoba wasn't even a province yet. But yet, when you go to court, even as far to BC, everything is theirs, somehow magically.
Yes, That's
Well,
why.
yeah.
That's why I'm saying that nobody consulted me about falling under
No.
alien laws. I didn't need it. I had mine. Mine were far more strict. And in my wholesome living as a Dakota, if somebody broke the law, they were banished from the community and they were gone. They never came back.
Okay.
You get somebody drinking in the community today, you tell him to leave, he'll leave and come back tomorrow and laugh at you. It's all gone. Those are the dilution, I guess, of my laws, the laws of my Okansan. They're there. We were never freewheeling when it come to abusing one another, abusing substances, stealing. There was no such thing. Other than stealing horses, I guess, but that was a whole different story.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. So what is the role of the province now to you?